Okay, we are recording.
So let's go ahead and get started.
You can shift that off to the side as much as you want. Yeah.
Okay. Let's start by me introducing myself, and then you're going to introduce yourselves. My name is Bruce Mason. I am a faculty member in physics and astronomy here. And 20 years ago, when we got a new CIO here at OU, he invited me in to be the faculty advisor to the CIO. And 20 years later, I'm still trying to figure out what that means. But basically, I sit in on CIO meetings and directors meetings and try to bring the faculty experience to IT. I try to think about what faculty will respond when IT do things. This is probably an impossible job to figure out what all faculty do, but there are commonalities in terms of the way that faculty think and the way that faculty work, and that's what we're going to try to cover here, is from the perspective of tenure and promotion, how do we think, how should we think about faculty? Tenure is sort of the focus, certainly at the beginning of a new faculty's career. A friend of mine, when we got tenure a long time ago, we just sent ourselves a message, which is, congratulations, you just won the lottery. Back then, it was guaranteed $50,000 for life. But there's a lot more to it than that. And that's what I want to talk about here. First of all, I need to figure out how you are, who you are. Someone also, I want the people in Zoom land to respond to this as well. When somebody tell me what we have. First of all, how many people in here either are or have been in a tenured or tenure track position? Okay, we have 4 of you. How many people in here are in some way, would you consider yourselves administrators? Sort of academic or staff administrators. Okay? So we're going to have to be careful about that. Careful what I say about it. Who in here has heard this talk before? Okay, I apologize right now. It'll be pretty much the same thing, but you can help me out as we go along. I am a faculty member, so of course there's going to be a test at the end. But the test at the end, I'll let you work together as a pre-test to figure out what we're going to be talking about. So what I'm going to do is the first row, I want you to turn around and talk to the second row. The third row, I want you to turn around and talk to the fourth row. And I want you to figure out what all these things are. Your job is to figure out who and what all these things are. Turn around, talk, go.
Okay.
In particular, yeah, if you're on Zoom, you can use the chat. So what are all these things and what's the distinction? Go ahead. Okay, pause. Okay, let's get back together. Okay, here we go. This is the way my class always runs. And this is the way I don't have to talk as much. Okay, first of all, who has questions about this? Who had questions? Nobody has questions, and I can ask any of you. Have to be able to answer.
So I'm asking on behalf of somebody else, but what is the
Sure.
Sure. So a friend of mine wants to know what is the practical difference between an associate professor and a professor?
Associate, look, we will get to that, but associate professor is the second step in the tenure track. So the tenure track is what most of this is about. It starts assistant professor, it goes to associate professor. When you get tenured, you get full professor, sometime later when you have established yourself as even a stronger researcher and a larger international reputation. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about after the first step. What else?
Yep. What's the difference between an instructor and a renewable term professor?
Anybody want to take that?
It depends.
Yeah, all of these, I will admit, most of this depends a little bit on your institute. By the way, there's one thing I didn't ask. How many people here are from primarily research institutions? How many people here are from liberal arts institutions? Anybody from community college? Okay, it depends a little bit, but in general, renewable term professors have a contract that is fairly stable. Instructors get contracts semester by semester by semester. So instructors are the slave labor. You notice I put them right under grad assistants. They're just one step above grad assistant in terms of slave labor. They're the people that come in and teach 2, 3, 4 sections for almost nothing for our big class. Other questions? No questions? I can ask anything.
So what does endowed mean?
With that,
Like the last
endowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, endowed professor, endowed chair. These are essentially the same thing. Anybody got that one?
Somebody gave a big chunk of money, it's in a bank account, and the interest goes to that person.
Right. So these are people usually hired in, sometimes it's internal, but usually hired in when a donor gives a big chunk of money to a department or program and says, we will have this, they will have this extra bank account that they can use for their research. These are the big names. Yeah.
And an institution I used to be at was not uncommon for at least the first endowed professor or endowed chair to be named with the endowment by the donor.
Right, right. They usually have a name, so sometimes they're called named professorships too. So, you know, and it could be, you know, the Verizon professor of electrical engineering, or the, heaven forbid, the Huawei professor of computer science. In trouble there. You might have heard what's going on in Stanford. They're trying to cut off all connections. Yeah.
What's the hierarchy between president, chancellor, and provost?
Okay, president and chancellor, I was talking to the group in the back there. President and chancellor, again, depends on your institution. You know, they can be used interchangeably. But what it is institutions that have multiple campuses quite often will have someone over multiple campuses and then someone at each campus. Sometimes the person over all campuses is called the president, sometimes they're called the chancellor, sometimes it's reversed. But essentially the president is the person that runs the campus, or the chancellor is the person that runs the campus. And sometimes for multi-institutions, there's someone above that who runs multiple institutions. Provost is different. Anybody can tell me what the provost is? It's in terms of academics. They're usually vice president of academics. So they are responsible for the academic side. And then there's quite often a vice president for research that is involved in research. The other question? Like I said, that will be a test. So please. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the tenure track. Some people continue to consider the tenure track a way to develop and build new knowledge. Some people consider it outdated and need to be thrown away. More about that later. But just to get you to think about how important faculty think tenure is. This is from the OU Faculty Handbook. I'll give you a second to read it. About tenure and academic freedom. The thing is in blue and the things in red are my highlights, but you know, don't read that. And I want you to tell me your opinion of this.
I'm curious what your opinion is about social media. How that is currently.
That's something that we're still trying to figure out. And it goes really, you know, it's not that different from other issues that came before social media in terms of people expressing their own opinion versus the opinion of the institution as, you know, as a researcher, as a member of the institution. It just, at social media, it just makes it that much more public and that much easier to do.
I'd offer that this is much more true through 12, 13 years ago than it is today. That you're not assured the unfettered, unbiased, and unencumbered that we were back in the good old days.
Back in the good old days. And this was, this was written back in the somewhat good old days, or back in the very good old days. There is a lot of tension now about this, about what this actually means and how much freedom faculty members should have. And people have gotten in trouble on some of the things that they've posted on social media. And the question is whether they've been doing that as a representative of their institution or their own free speech. And it has been problematic.
So not only professors posting social media, but students posting in social media during the classroom. Professors trying to have an open and unbiased conversation about something.
Right. That actually goes to questions about what the class actually is and what are the boundaries of the class. And again, that one is very much a point of tension.
I find it interesting that you highlighted two words twice in there, and that would be untruths.
Right.
Because in today's society, truth is largely contextual.
I don't know, is it?
Yeah, it's subject to opinions and like-minded groups of people that they'll accept a statement as truth as long as it fits within a certain set of parameters. Now you expand beyond those parameters and it's no longer true, but they want to exclude that as well that doesn't apply.
Well, okay, I'm a physicist. Are Newton's laws true?
I'm not a researcher, so
Basically,
Any comment on that? Are Newton's laws true?
Well, not when
in
you.
the current 3 dimensions that we understand.
Yeah, I was going to say not at the quantum level or near Einsteinian speeds.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I highlighted those because I have trouble with those words too. Because I know within my discipline, and certainly my discipline is one of the, we get things to 12 significant digits. But truth, I'm not sure if it's truth we're talking about. But that's what faculty think. So again, what we're thinking here is trying to get the perspective of a faculty member. And there's a lot of faculty members who think this way. So that's what we need to consider. And so let's see why that might be, why faculty members might feel this way. So here we go. Timeline for the tenure track we just talked about. Associate professor, assistant professor. And we'll start at grad school. For some disciplines, people, when they're 22, they come out, or 21, 20, whatever, come out of undergrad and they go right to grad school. Other disciplines, that's not true. They, quite often work for a few years before they go to grad school. But let's just say year 0 is graduate, when they first enroll in graduate school. How long does it take them to finish their PhD? Do I know? 5 to 10 years. That's a broad statement. But actually, 5 is pretty generous. I'm going to say 6, although 6, in fact, is low. This is data from the NSF. And this is the median for different disciplines. And notice that, physical sciences and mathematics, the median is sort of 6.5 to 7 years. You're talking a little bit about, non-STEM fields. Talk about social sciences and humanities, you're talking 9 or 10 years. So before you even get to a position like, finding, your tenure track, the first one is, let's say this is a star, so it's 6 years. How long before they get on the tenure track? How long before they reach the assistant professor? 3 to 5 years. Good. I'm going to say 4. So we're now at year 10. What they usually do is they do some sort of research position. Usually they're 2 or 3 year positions, and we usually do 2 or 3 of them. So, let's just say you do 2 2-year postdocs. That's what I did. standard. So you're now at year 10 before you even got a fairly stable job, something that is not sort of year. Then they go through the tenure track. Associate professor, how long does it take to get tenure? It's officially 7 years. I mean, in most institutions, it's you right up in 6 years and you get it. So it's year 17 from when you started until such time as you hit this, I am now a tenured professor. And then Henry asked about full professor. Depends. You know, that one varies all over. It depends on who you are, what you're interested in. But you know, think about this progression. 17 years. Think about that 17 years before they hit this, I am now a tenured professor. So let's think about what that takes. So now we've gone through 5, 6, 7 years as a graduate student. We've gone through 4, 5, 6 years as a research a postdoc. I'm now a newly minted assistant professor. What do I need to do? Well, first of all, you have 6 years. Almost always it's 6 years in which you have to be productive. At the end of that 6 years, you have to write your life story. You have to tell people why you're good enough to get tenure. What have you done? Have you been successful? No. What are your accomplishments? Your life story goes to external reviewers, generally people that you don't pay. You write back and say, yeah, whether or not you have this good stuff in order to get this as a department. The department votes. It goes to the dean in college and your campus colleagues. They read through this. They look on it. It goes to your provost, president, regents. They decide. And if all those steps you get a yes, you don't have to. Let's stop a second. Think about the pressure on you during those 6 years. What do you think that's like? For those of you who've been through it, what's it like?
Very published talk.
Publish or perish. Yeah, I mean, you know, you gotta be productive, and productive is we said. You know, you gotta get the stuff out. What else? Any other thoughts?
Well, you got to be careful not to pick off too many of your colleagues, especially within your own department. Right. And there's 2 pieces to that. One is in an interpersonal sense, don't make them think you're a jerk. And the other is in a professional sense, they have to believe that the stuff you're doing is more important than opening up a faculty line for a different area of research, right? Because they don't have to justify their vote ever, and it's anonymous.
Yeah, it's an anonymous vote. You know, it depends on what happens, but when people think about this,
You also have to consider this.
yeah, I mean, you know, somewhere along the way, you better think about if this is really what you want to do. And it's not that uncommon for people to say, huh. Yep.
You'll also get some clues from your institution as to whether maybe you ought to be making that call.
Right. A good department will tell you every single year, at least, how you're doing, what you should be looking at. They should review you every single year. Good departments do that, bad departments don't. And when you go in and you are working with faculty in different departments, it's a good idea to think about what sort of support is actually available in the department. supports the faculty? Or is it cutthroat, dog eat dog, every person?
It's important to recognize too that in most places this is a tripartite thing where teaching, research, and service are often built into it. And in many cases, you can be, for instance, a star researcher and you're bringing in lots of grant money, and it doesn't really matter how you teach. Your teaching evaluations can be in the toilet, and the institution doesn't really care as much because you're doing quite well in terms of productivity of PhD student publications and money. But at other institutions where research maybe is not the focus, you can live and die by your teaching evaluations. So there's extraordinary pressure to be seen as a good professor, which in terms of good teaching evals is what? It's usually friendly, fairly easy. You don't ask too much of your students. You're not too demanding. And that's tough.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't think if it goes quite that far, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues.
yeah, it can.
But I've also seen it vary from department to department, college to college, to the university.
And from year to year.
Yeah, or chair to chair.
Yep.
Dean to dean.
Now, this is just from an outsider's perspective. As you're going through this process, you are being taught and influenced by the people that are established.
Hopefully.
And you're turning around and being judged by the same people that taught you. So doesn't the truth that become relative to where you were raised up as a senior professor?
Well, again, it's very department specific, but remember that departments are not unified. Good departments tend to support each other. Bad departments, there'll be different research units within it that are constantly fighting.
Right, but I mean, if you're brought up as a faculty trying to get to this tenure status, you come through with a certain ideology that reflects the peers that you're around. And so in order to become one of them, you have to propagate the same viewpoints that they had, or else you're being cast to the side.
Somewhat. There's two things there. One is interdepartmental politics. So you could be being mentored by a certain section, and another section of the department says, and there are unfortunate cases of that, where departments are so split that they have trouble with any tenures. The other thing is, hopefully, again, we're talking about good departments and bad departments. Hopefully, good departments will be willing to say, yeah, this is someone who's contributing, maybe in ways that I don't, but they're contributing. So, yeah, I mean, there's politics on different levels involved here. So, in terms of productivity, and we talked about this, what do you have to do? You got to publish. What else you got to do? You got to bring in money. Above credit. Write books, papers, money, collaboration, stocks, papers, money. I mean, output in terms of graduate students have it here as being a little bit, but in terms of academic productivity, this is what is really looked at. Officially, quite often this is kind of what the basis of your production of your evaluation is. Yeah.
Since you mentioned collaboration on the last slide, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the reward structure for multidisciplinary collaboration or lack thereof.
Is this a healthy university or not?
Define healthy university.
A healthy university would recognize this.
Do you have an example of one?
Oh, you. Well, one example, I'll do an OU example. We have the Radar Center, which is a interdisciplinary center between mostly electrical engineering and meteorology. It also has some computer science. And they have worked out a ways of people who are in the radar center that are doing all three to have evaluations such that all three are considered beneficial. But that took a lot of work with each of the departments to say, yes, you will recognize that this person is 1/3 in electrical engineering and 2/3 in meteorology. That's the other thing that's really important is the unusual cases have to be really well documented. So when faculty members come in, right, they're told exactly, they get it in writing, what the evaluation is going to be, what is going to be their evaluations. What does this mean for them? And if it's cross-disciplinary or if it's more of a teaching position, then that's stated. And it's in writing, and you're very careful about it. The problem with that is what Henry said, which is the tenure vote is anonymous. So there could be faculty members that say, I don't care about it. And there have been unfortunate cases where this has to be goes to the provost. And you have to go back and forth about this. But yeah, I mean, the collaboration. In collaborations, I was thinking about collaborations inside, but also collaborations outside. Collaborations outside of the university are really important to get your name out. Because again, people are going to be writing letters for you. And so collaborations outside the university are really huge. So, that's all the things that the assistant professor needs to be bound to as he or she does. So there's the official. And again, as was stated, this is pretty flexible in terms of what it means. In some institutions, for your teaching, as long as you can talk and chew gum at the same time, like those people, as long as you're a sterling researcher. And really, frankly, this is what the evaluations say, but it's mostly the research progression for a research institution. That really is most heavily weighted. Okay, so assistant professor, it's really the research they have to do. I have a couple of names of papers I sort of pulled up for the assistant professor. Measurement of the TT bar production cross-section top quark mass extraction using dilepton events in PP bar collisions. I know there's one person who understands. Swear like a sailor, language, culture, meaning in the American maritime world, 1750 to 1850. Elimination of threading dislocations in asgro lead selenide film with pattern silicon 111 substrate using molecular matrix. I know that. Do you know what that means?
I recognize those reports.
Exactly. But this is how focused your clients are going to be. This is what they're really focused on. Really focused. Because if you don't get tenured, you're gone. And you may wonder why anybody would want to go through this. Give you a little bit more data as to why anybody would want to do this. This again is from the surveys from the NSF, talking about what your salary is if you go into academia versus going into industry. For example, physical sciences. This is the tenure track. This is the postdoc position. This is the tenure track position. That's if I go into industry. Computer sciences and math, even bigger distribution. Psychology, humanities, and arts. Okay. want you to talk to each other and explain the mindset of a faculty member and why they would want to do this. Imagine yourself thinking about this as your future. What you have to do. You've gone through grad school, your choice is where you're going. Why would you want to do this? Talk to them. Explain this.
Yeah, we need that. Like,
Okay, pause. Okay, let's go get back together. So what's the answers? Of course, there's lots of answers, but what are some of the answers? Freedom, what kind of freedom? Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of freedom to do what you want, with one little caveat, which Kenny mentioned, is you've got to be bringing in money to do it. So, you've got to be continuing to support yourself quite often. What else?
I think stress, and the other thing is like it's not paying well.
Well, this is reasons why not to do it. Stress, certainly during the first 6 years, and the pay. I could have gone into industry and probably made significantly more than I'm quite happy. But then my wife makes a bunch. What else?
No one told us when we joined that school that this would be life.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not understood quite as much as it should be. We don't do a good enough job with our graduate students. Tell them what may be involved. Anything else? Yep.
Now having a little bit more rounded view from Henry, talking with Henry, I think this kind of goes back to what he was talking about last night about happiness. Is with the freedom and the security of having a job that you can, that you're able to go out and try to accomplish something that you feel contributes to humanity as a whole, and that's where a lot of people derive their happiness.
Right. Yeah, I was talking to the group back in the corner about that too. Where you feel like this is really something that you think is a benefit. You're doing it because you feel it's happiness. People who study academics, certainly there's a lot of issues with graduate students and postdocs in terms of mental issues, frankly. There's a lot of problems that we need to deal with. But I think that tenured faculty, because you can lose your job, we'll get to how you lose your job, but you've got a fairly secure job and you can do happiness. What else?
I also think there's a lot of momentum. I think the people that get their PhDs are always looking to the next step, the next achievement, and the tenure process gives them a nice little ladder that they can follow because that's their personality.
Right. I mean, the personality type of, this is achievement. This is, the way I go to prove myself. Certainly a lot of that. There's a lot of ego.
Sunk cost. I devoted 7 to 10 years to getting the PhD, and I'm damned if I'm going to give up academia now.
Right.
There's
Yeah, the problem there is deciding against that. And the biggest problem is most of them are female. We have a huge problem with females, particularly in sciences and engineering, and someone in that would say, forget about it. This situation is toxic. And it's toxic in more ways than just, cutthroat, I got to go to the next thing. There are a lot of problems.
I have PhDs in math. And so I actually found math less toxic than computer science. But for me, it was, for some reason I decided to start a family like near the end of grad school. And if your child cries a lot, you fall off that ladder and there's no back on ramp. So that's how I end up in this sorry condition I'm in now.
You poor thing.
What's really sad is your statement, for some reason I decided to start. That should not.
Well, that was me being flippant.
I understand, but just the fact that you said that.
That was
reveals an awful lot of truth.
There's always an element of truth in sarcasm.
Anything else? You missed my number one answer.
If you want to keep learning or be on the cutting edge of anything, it's much more difficult than industry.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have freedom to always, look at the next thing and go after the next one. There's one more thing.
In the industry, you have to deal with a lot more different types of people that you would have to deal with as a professor, and I guess accountability is different in a tenure track as compared to when you're working on a manager or something else.
Yeah, I mean, again, that goes somewhat to freedom, doing what you want, somewhat to the people that you're working with. But frankly, faculty members are weird. Faculty members are flat out weird. Think about your educational experience. The faculty members are the one that, we're going through these classes of 250, 300 and enjoying them. And think about that. We're weird, that we really enjoyed this whole process from the very beginning. Not always true. There's some that, we're sort of, blow-offs to begin with, but somewhere along the way they decided, hey, this is stuff, and that's a little bit strange. This is not as much for you, although you have to deal with it. I try to give this talk to faculty members so that they know how to interact with the people they work with, students. And it's, that's a difficult thing. Yep.
I mean, the darker side of that, that faculty often are those who thrive in conditions with, little contact with people. They don't have to deal with people as much, or they're not particularly socially adept. Like, they're excellent at not being supervised. They don't particularly like to be managed.
Yep.
They don't take orders.
Yeah, and functionally, even pre-tenure, although certainly once you get tenure, you really functionally have no boss. I mean, like you say, it's very challenging at that point to lose your job. And sadly, that translates to even if you are like faculty, in my experience, and I'm not trying to make a huge generalization, but everywhere I work, there are always these special students who often downright abuse staff and people who are not, whatever, in ways that they would never do to their colleagues, and they can absolutely get away with it. And it's, so we were discussing here something that institutions often never like to acknowledge, or if they do, it's very well, yeah, what do you want us to do about it? There's a class system at most institutions. And you're either, tenured faculty or on that track, or you're not. Yep. And if you're not, you're often considered the help.
Yep.
And it's terrible, but people who excel in those positions often have a mindset that works in that environment, and it's terrible.
Right. Part of that is the personality. Part of that is people think that since I went through this whole process, I'm really that good. And I'm someone who, going back to the tenure statement, I am someone that out there finding the truth. And yeah, I mean, how you deal with that personality. But yeah, there are real problems, and that's why I'll never be chairman. Okay, after tenure, promotion. Promotion is the step that we talked about. The assistant, associate, full professor. Almost always, when you go from assistant professor to associate professor, it comes with that happens at the same time as the tenure decision. And then full professor is something that comes later for some people, not all people. You got to continue to publish. You got to continue to prove yourself. You need international recognition. Quite often, this is one of the statements about, are you a full professor? Have you made a splash in your field internationally? And with each of those, there's a bump in your salaries. And, sort of the sort of things you need to do is continue what you did before, plus you've got to work on more committees, you've got to work on more service, you've got to be an editor of journal maybe, or run conferences, all these things that actually go beyond or in a lot of ways conflict with the research. So there's a lot of new things that come in when you are going from associate. So there, we had again, I discussed it back. There are examples of people that get tenure and boom, that's it. But in general, that's not true. In general, people are pretty dedicated to their research and will continue trying to contribute to these things. And again, people get a bump and stuff. And then after tenure, you also, almost every institution has done this now, you have post-tenure review. And for public institutions, these are being established in large part because of legislatures. The state legislatures are saying, why are these people sitting around? So for here, this is fairly standard. Every 5 years, I have to write a self-evaluation. What did I do? It goes to the department. Every year, I write an annual evaluation, and every 5 years, I write out a more general self-evaluation. The department evaluates it, the dean evaluates it, the provost evaluates it. If they think it's not enough, it's not right, then you have to go through a process of writing a statement of how you're going to improve. And then usually get another 5 years, sometimes not. And if you miss it twice, you're gone. They can get rid of it. It's not easy, it's not quick. They can get rid of you. But otherwise, okay for the next 5 years. And if you are within 5 years of retirement, woohoo! What the heck? I say that because of the notice we didn't talk much about teaching. You may think that's teaching. That's teaching. Unfortunately, in the tenure and promotion process, teaching takes a back seat. However, another thing that is true about a lot of faculty is they care about teaching. They care about students. They're here in part because of the interaction with students. Now, with some of them, it's their mentors and mentees, both graduate and undergraduates during the research program. But a lot of people also really care about what they're doing in the classroom. The problem is, a lot of faculty do not look at this in the same way they look at their research. And they should, because there's ways to teach and there's ways not to teach. And it's unfortunate that a lot of them go through the ways not to teach because it worked for them when they came up. So, but teaching, unfortunately, is not a part of this, but people care. Okay, and here it goes into the details of what you have to do to lose tenure. This is kind of it. Moral turpitude. But, they can also close the department. If you say, you have an emergency, a financial emergency, they can close the department. Or they can fire it.
They try to
Yeah, I mean, usually they will have trouble doing that. But it's usually written into most of the rules. There's a famous example of, I won't name the institution, who about 15 years ago wanted to get rid of the physics department because the chair of the physics department was also the chair of the faculty senate. And he, as chair of the faculty senate, he was giving the president a hard time, so the president tried to remove the physics department. And that's the same time that this institution was trying to build a big microelectronics, nanotechnology thrust. You kind of wondered what you kind of. But anyway, So you can get rid of people for cause. But it's not. However, even without abrogation of tenure, you can make faculty's life miserable by things like their teaching assignments, their service assignments. So there's ways to make people a little bit less comfortable. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about real quick, and then we'll get to your test. Last thing I wanted to talk about was, the direction the tenure is going. We'll talk a little bit about this. This is from 2013. It hasn't changed. The difference between the number of instructors, academic people who are on the tenure track versus non-tenure. And notice that between 1970 and 2010, it essentially reversed. It went from, about 3/4 tenure track to about 1/3 tenure track. So the idea of institutions really valuing, their tenured faculty, giving them tenure, that's just not true. It's going the opposite direction. And they break this down by different institutions. Research institutions are still less than half tenure track. Public two-year institutions, in fact, that's where most of our students are taught in this country. That is by far away the majority of places where our students are being taught. Most of them are by temporary instructors. I think that's something that we have to worry. Okay, so you ready for your test?
Could I acknowledge the trend on that? Because it looks like the tenure system traditionally had been, and I'm fixing to draw a loose connection between them, almost like a labor union in the labor industry, where you had like the tenure was the thing that you had the job represented job security, where the labor union kind of represented job security and equality for the worker, and you're seeing a decline in both of those for the independent contractor and the actual. I won't come in and get it done quick, and then we won't. Yeah,
Faculty have never been. There's institutions that are unionized, but in general, faculty are not.
Right.
They don't.
Well, I mean,
I can see how that
job
would make
security
adjuncts cheaper and non-union labor is
Right.
cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, it's a financial thing. So,
I was speaking strictly to the job security aspect of it as opposed to moving on to the next latest and greatest.
yeah. I mean, it's certainly a financial thing. It's also a flexibility thing. Hiring and firing. You can get rid of people as you need.
We saw this when I was in Texas. Texas was one of the early states that sort of took on the concept of tenure and workloads. About when the legislature started demanding that, little things. University education costs a student no more than $10,000, parentheses. We're not going to fund the universities, close parentheses. And, all those guys that are employed there, they should all be teaching 9 hours a semester every semester. It was a frontal assault. The idea was to try and see if they could reduce the tenure ranks. People were not going to put up with this, and to some extent it worked at the institution I was at, and at several of the other institutions, because it was just virtually impossible to do that. We started seeing regents, all who had been named by one governor, try to push this agenda as well. So you ran into a problem of the assault on the independence, the assault on the time to do research, and even community service. But they didn't change the requirements for service, research, money. Did I mention money?
You just mentioned.
At that particular institution, when I left, somewhat better off than OU was as far as legislative funding. We were 22% for legislative funding. The rest, virtually all of the rest, 12% came from tuition fees. But so 66% came from contracts and grants. They really wanted to eliminate those because those detracted from your ability to go teach. But we want the money from those. You've got to try and see where this is coming from. Part of it's a push to try and save money at the state level. And part of it is we don't want these independent folks telling us what their version of the truth is.
Yeah, I think one thing that you might think about in your role is what's the value of the system that we currently have in terms of independent research, independent exploration, and how should you support the people at your institution to show that value? And if we don't show that value, our institutions are going to continue to change. Okay, here is your test. You can talk to each other. So we have all these things. What I want you to think about and answer is, of these roles, people in these roles, for your job, for the things that you're doing as research support, infrastructure support, so who is important and why? Which of these roles are the ones that you have to work hardest to support, reach out to support, or another question is watch out for? Let's go.
Loaded set of, yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say it was going to be an easy test. So think about, as your role, what does this mean? I don't worry about okay, so on the enterprise, it's not a place. Right, but we're this is a research. I agree. Now that it's not you is not. But that's
Even though the the model is yeah, a smaller fraction.
Okay, pause.
But I'm gonna argue that
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's finish up. Okay. What are the answers? Someone in the back says, I'm afraid of all of these. Okay, who's important and why? This is a multifaceted question. You fill them all, but all of them are important, but in different ways.
So I'm going to argue slightly contrary. I'm going to argue that for research computing, so for this target audience, faculty or faculty-like personnel who are only involved in instruction with respect to what they do for the institution are not that important to the research computing mission, because they don't need us and they don't complain about us.
I don't know. Does anybody here help people teach classes using research computing resources?
Yeah, it's a tiny piece of what we do, and it almost never involves some pure teaching person.
And you get about half of the ones from my building, and I get about half of them. And it's and we don't see them very often. They come in, they ask a couple of questions, they go, "Oh, yes, I understand everything now."
I think they understand why the learning curve from the phone is so bad if y'all aren't helping your instructors.
It's not that we're not.
We are helping people who instruct, but we are not helping people whose role is purely instructional. I don't believe come to me and say I'm teaching a course on a topic that I don't do any research at this institution. I'm teaching a course that's directly relevant to supercomputing and needs access to your resources. That's never happened. Now it could happen. I agree with you, but it never has at this institution.
Okay, Henry just got rid of 2.
Can't renewable term professors do research?
Yeah, I mean, actually, renewable.
Yeah, and it's really instructor and lecturer, right?
Instructor.
And lecturer is not the
Well, the graduates
No, they do most of the use. They are among our biggest day-to-day stakeholders.
Well, okay. Depends on what, if they're a graduate teaching assistant.
Right.
But
Well, but they're still usually doing
they're
research.
still usually, yeah, that's correct.
They may not be paid to do the research, but still do.
Why should we be afraid of graduate students?
They'll go complain to the faculty.
Well, they'll complain to the faculty. What else?
I'm frequently worried about what they'll do to the computer.
Yeah, I go afraid.
They're
Okay, who else is important or should we be afraid of? Assistant professors, yeah, I mean, people that are going through those 6 years.
Assistants and associates are important because you need to engage them early.
Right. So getting to them and letting them know that they have support is really important to get them going.
Well, and the institution, people who are on tenure track, they express to the institution that what you're providing is very valuable to their tenure process. That carries an enormous amount of weight with the administration, in my experience. They really like to hear we're helping them get tenure.
Sometimes you've got to cater to some of the people further up the food chain. Professors, full professors are usually pretty well established. I don't have to worry about them. But chairs and deans, they're ephemeral. They need education.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because quite often you'll have deans come in that have no idea why you're useful. And so educating deans and provosts, our provost is he a historian or a classicist?
Definitely humanities, I think classes.
Yeah, I mean, his view of high performance computing is.
I'm not aware that he has.
So, a knowledge of them, their knowledge is going to be important.
President or chancellor?
President or chancellor, hopefully you will never have to talk to.
Hopefully you won't, but be prepared to, because you run into the same problem. I don't know what HPC is. I'm not going to add it to my budget this year.
Yeah, why are we paying for this expensive thing?
Right. Yeah, I say never talk to them. You hopefully only talk to them every time you need to do a research. But I mean, you need to sort of let them know what's going on. But,
Yeah, and usually it's a level or two above you who's talking to the president. But
Right.
yeah,
yeah, hopefully you're.
I'm still afraid of
I want them all to be delighted.
it. Yes.
One other person. What about those two? Endowed chairs, endowed professors. They're the same thing.
I don't worry about, I'm not afraid of them so much as I am interested in engaging. But they're also not, they're usually well enough established that they know what they want and need. They're usually well enough established that they can articulate that.
Won't these be some of your bigger advocates? Like if you need a bunch of important faculty to come and say, research computing is very important.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. These are the stars. These have been hired in because they're stars. And so if you can get them on your side, that's a great thing. We flip that around. What if you piss them off? You don't want to do that. You got to be aware.
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties is most of these positions are well positioned to pour poison in other people's ear about you if they think what you're doing is a waste of time and money.
Do we have experience here? Okay.
Probably
Yeah.
all of us do. But
Right. So these can go either way, but realize that these have a lot of can have a lot of voice to make noise, both positive and negative. So in terms of flat out support, graduate students, assistant and associate professors, research professors essentially too, because quite often they're on soft money, which means they need grants to keep supporting them. So they're in a constant cycle of bringing in grants just to pay their own salary. So these are people that need your support at a we're desperate level, and then the others are ones that who are you need their support as much as they need your support to continue operating. Yep.
You didn't list Board of Regents.
Again, Board of Regents is like the president, because the president, in good cases, we won't talk about recent history here, but in good cases, the president can run the Board of Regents. So if the president is behind you, quite often the Board of Regents is ready to go.
I've been in a place where they showed up.
Yep.
Like all of them showed up for a tour of the machine room.
Oh, that's a good thing.
It was.
They know who you are now.
When I came in the morning, I thought, so I was at Tennessee at the time.
Right.
Before that, I'd been at Illinois. In Illinois, there are 9 regions plus a student, faculty representative.
Yep.
And Tennessee, I came in the morning. I said, Donna, you had something on the Regents, and she handed me, some photocopied pages. There were 26 on Board of Regents. So yeah, an hour was not enough time because I'd like to learn about people before I do a tour if I can.
Yeah.
So it's. The president was there too. I'm not sure why they came out to give a tour, but they did.
I think the one thing I would worry most about with Board of Regents is if one of them has experience with enterprise IT. Then they don't know what you're doing.
And that's where
I think they do.
that's where it's important to be able to tell that story of the flipped upside down for research computing.
Yeah, I would say with Board of Regents, one the most disastrous or dangerous I've ever come with that was we had people from public telcos on Board of Regents and had a very good idea of what networking should look like at the university and stuff like that. The other thing I would say is I'm president, chancellor, provost, and I use every opportunity you have where you're announcing something big and good about your center or your network, something like that. See if they want to announce.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Run it by them first. Oftentimes they won't care, they won't want to, but every once in a while, if they need some good news, they can say, hey, we got this brand new computer. Right. I'm Mr. President announcing it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, at this institution, you pretty much have to. I mean, you have to be really careful what announcements you make public. I mean, it has to go through public. So.
Just translation right here. Board of Regents, I'm assuming that translates like in our situation, cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, this is for a public institution.
Board of
state-
Trustees outside.
Board of
right?
Trustees. It is it's like it's a board of directors for private institutions. So they're the ones that direct, are sort of responsible for this. Any questions, comments, thoughts? I hope you think about what this means, and I hope it helps you interact with your faculty. You can turn on the recording.